to the 15th GPCA Annual Forum. My name is Aslila Al-Bassam. I'm a research specialist at GPCA, and I'm also leading one of the new initiatives launched by GPCA, the GPCA Youth Committee. With me today is a very special guest, Mr. Abdulaziz Al-Oudan, Executive Vice President of Corporate Human Resources at SABIC. Mr. Abdulaziz, thank you for taking the time to join us today, and welcome to Dubai and to our annual forum.
Thank you very much, Asil. Happy to be here.
It's very nice to have you with us. If you'll allow me to jump into the questions right away. As you have just heard, I'll be leading the GPCA Youth Committee. With GPCA, it's a very exciting new initiative. But given your position and your role, I wanted to understand basically what is the role of the GPCA Youth Committee in supporting talent development in the regional chemical industry.
Well, let me first just mention that I feel privileged that I was part of the initiation of the Leaders of Tomorrow initiative at GPCA. So I'm very happy and excited about the progress, the development, the growth that has been demonstrated by the whole team. When we look at the context today in terms of changing economies, changing platforms, the whole COVID impact and what's taking place, it's really essential that our youth really starts focusing on supporting large companies, SABIC and the likes of SABIC, on really strategizing of what tomorrow could look like. It's very important to create this very strong connection between the future leaders and the existing ones. And I think the trick in achieving that optimum value is the buildup of that bridge between both. And I think that's exactly what you guys are doing.
Thank you, Mr. Abdulaziz. And I think you've also highlighted a good point here about connecting. And I think one of the reasons why we've created this platform is to basically connect the youth and have a platform for them to basically share knowledge and hopefully help in the sustainable development of the industry. You've also highlighted about COVID, and I just wanted to jump into the next question about that. So in your opinion, how has the pandemic changed how employees work and how they're supported? And what was your experience with SABIC when it comes to that?
Well, that's an excellent question, and it's not. It's kind of becoming the question of the time. I think there are two types of looking at it. One is looking at COVID as a situation, as a pandemic, a pure pandemic, and how the question becomes, how are we going to respond to it?
Yeah.
The second opportunity of looking at it, or a chance to look at it, is looking at COVID as an accelerator of change that has been happening for the last 5-6 years. The latter option of looking at it really opens up opportunities of how we could look at the new norm, the new buzzword, the new norm. What's going to happen tomorrow? What are things going to look like? If we just encapsulate the change in COVID as a pandemic, as painful as it was, we might be losing value or just leaving value on the table. If we look at it from a much more strategic point of view, and we look at that COVID was just an accelerator of change, then it opens up a horizon of opportunities. So we need to ask questions of, what does capability look like now? It's kind of reimagining what capabilities are. The classical way of looking at it is just that the triangle of people, tools, and processes. When you think about it right now, all of the three have changed. And all have the influence on what could be the future operating model. At SABIC, we started off by creating an initiative of exploring what the new norm would look like. And this was in the peak of the initiative, so mid-2020. As we started to move forward, we actually found out that this is not going to be just a one-time off engagement. It's going to be a continuous review of an extremely fluid situation. And it's still happening right now. It's not yet solid. So we decided to make that, instead of just a kind of a project with a well-defined beginning and end, we kicked it off with a much more open structure, including all stakeholders in the organization. So we are not defining the new norm for the organization, but we're bringing the insight of what's happening outside and including all stakeholders from SABIC, with all different groups, whether it's the SABIC Women's Network, whether it is the Silk Group, which is the SABIC Young Leadership Council, focus groups, and we're working on developing a point of view, if I would call it, that would describe what the new norm would look like for SABIC tomorrow. The main theme, of course, is agility and well-being of employees. Those two themes are going to be center stage to kind of the end state, if we would call it an end state of the new norm, or what is it going to look like for SABIC.
I think that these are very good points that you've highlighted. And when you talk about the new norm, this actually leads me to my next question here. I wanted to understand from you is, do you think remote working is here to stay? Because I know when COVID happened, a lot of people were working remotely. Everything changed, like the work environments have changed. So do you think that remote work is here to stay? And what impact does it have on managing a workforce?
Well, remote work has been there for a while. It's kind of prior to the pandemic. The pandemic kind of made it more visible. It was, in many cases, the only option for businesses to continue and flourish. Uh, but when you look at the data and how people responded to working from home, it varies. Some people found that it was very productive. They were able to continue working with their companies, with their colleagues, and connect with them, assuming that the right infrastructures are in place. Others kind of found it difficult for them. And this has nothing to do, I mean, we've looked at age groups, we've looked at um, nature of work, it varies. So the data is all over the place. The question becomes, uh, first of all, I think what is most important is that we do not encapsulate the new norm in the working from home arrangements. It's one element, it's an important element, but the future of work is much more broader, it's much more wider. It touches the work itself, it touches the workforce themselves, it touches the workplace. So all three elements need to be looked at. Is it emerging as an option for many organizations? Absolutely. And I think the trick is going to be uh, making it fit for purpose. So organizations or parts of the organization that are able to fulfill their work from a distance, that's going to be a very positive approach. But we always need to keep in mind as well that there's a challenge with the remote work, which is the I would call it the compilation or the creation and sustainability of the corporate culture itself. Today, people work together physically, they're very close, so they're able to feed off of each other in terms of values, inspiration, engagement, and so on. Uh, Remote work takes that a bit away. We lose part of that. So it should not be a detractor. It should not be a showstopper for us to do that, but it inspires us to think of new ways and means really to sustain corporate cultures.
I think that's very interesting that you've highlighted this. And I believe you've touched upon agility in one of the previous questions, which also leads me to my other question. What can companies do to ensure workforce agility and fostering a culture of cooperation in the new reality?
Well, agility is really the theme of tomorrow. And I think that the best group positioned to bring this agility is actually you and the rest of your group, the future leaders. It's all about agility. It's all about connections and collaborations. So we're moving away slowly but surely, and specifically in the chemical industry, from rigid hierarchies. We're used, and maybe it's a demand, of course, of the industry itself, is that there needs to be a very strong hierarchy, very strong policies, very strong procedures. We're working with hazardous material, safety at plants, all of these topics. But in order for us to move forward, the new generation is coming into workforce with a completely different mindset. And this is becoming a buzzword. The existing leaders, the leaders that are driving success or building success from today, of course, have the knowledge, the know-how, but the value that is being brought in by the new workforce, the new generation, is the new thought process. Uh, they think about problems. You guys think about problems differently. And that's why I started my dialogue with the bridge between the two. You have the knowledge and the expertise, and you have the new ways of thinking. Um, Building that bridge and making it sustainable for both groups creates that agility that everyone requires. And I think that's the key to moving into the future.
It's actually interesting that you highlighted the word bridge, because this is something that we're actually targeting within the youth committee itself. We kind of want to bridge the minds of the future leaders and the industry leaders now to help basically create a mentor-mentee kind of relationship between them, in which they share experiences and then they can build on that based off of the communications that they have. So more on the youth now. What message do you have for our young professionals from the GCC who are seeking a career in the chemical industry? How can they prepare for the skills that they need now and basically to be successful in the jobs that they want to take on within the chemical industry and the petrochemical industry?
Asil, I could not think of a better time for people to join the industry than now. The amount and diversity of challenges that are presented today are fit for new ways of thinking. The new ways of thinking are being brought in by the new workforce, by the new leader, the emerging leaders. It's that capability of looking at things differently from a completely different angle. I would say that context allows for an opportunity that sometimes does not present itself. There was the boom, if I would reflect on the setup, for example, the situation in Saudi Arabia, there was the boom close to 50 years ago. What we're on the verge of is new opportunities, completely new capabilities, new ways of thinking. What I would expect and urge the leaders of tomorrow, really, and talent of the industry, is to embrace the challenge, be resilient, think of relationships differently, and reinvent processes. And that was kind of the encapsulation that the Vice Chairman and CEO, Yusuf Al-Banyan, and the Chairman of GPCA mentioned this morning. That was a great encapsulation of opportunities for the youth. Jump on it, it's a great opportunity, and being realistic about it, I have to say, I say to you and everyone else, we need you. This is your time.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Abdulaziz. I believe this is great advice. Myself and all the other youth that are surrounded will be very excited to hear this from you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us here today and to share your insights. It was a pleasure speaking to you and to learn from you. That's all we have for today. Until next time, thank you so much.